Hello friends, welcome to my channel. I'm Em and my books are everywhere. Today I'm going to be doing the unicorn tag, an original tag by Chrissie of Chrissie's Purple Library, but I'm putting my own little spin on it. So this is the unicorn book tag, Agatha Christie edition. Now you might think, are there enough Agatha Christie books to do a whole tag with just her books? Why, yes, there are. Agatha Christie wrote 66 novels and countless short stories. So let's dive right in. It's grimy dark out there, the darkest book you ever read with an unsettling plot, characters, or theme. If you know me, you know that I don't like grimy dark books. I like entertaining books. I love murder mysteries, but I like there to be a little lightness in them. I think that's probably why Agatha Christie is my favorite author. She just has a touch to take the darkest subjects and handle them in a way that entertains, that makes you laugh, that keeps things from getting too dark as you're reading them. All of that darkness is there, but it's not in your face, and I really like that. For this, I chose Endless Night. So this is my least favorite Agatha Christie book. Every time I read it, I'm just creeped out, but I've only read it 3 times, which is unusual because I'm usually rereading Agatha Christie all the time. And even though she does have a lot of books, I try to make my way through all of them, or most of them. There are some that, like this one, that it's rare that I pick it up. So it's been, I think, 2 or 3 years since I read it the last time, and it still creeped me out, still not my favorite, so it'll probably be years before I pick it up again. Gypsy's Acre was a truly beautiful upland site with views out to sea, and in Michael Rogers it stirred a childlike fantasy. There, amongst the dark fir trees, he planned to build a house, find a girl, and live happily ever after. If you like grimy dark, try that one. You may like it. When a Hero Comes Along. Your favorite hero and or heroine in a book. For this, I chose The Secret of Chimneys. So this, on the All About Agatha podcast, was ranked as her worst book, and they recalculated the ratings and it got moved up, so it's not the worst ranked book now, but it's still pretty low. I, however, have such a soft spot for this book, and if you were to ask me what my favorite Agatha Christie book is, I would say this one. And it's not because of the quality of the story or the writing, it's just an emotional attachment that I have to this book. I first read it when I was in high school, and it was the first Agatha Christie that I recognized had a romance element to it. I think that pretty much all her books have that, but that was going over my head when I was reading Agatha Christie when I was younger until I read this book. And then I was like, oh, that's a romance. And even my mom was surprised when I told her I was like, I really like this. It's a romance. And she's like, romance in an Agatha Christie? But yes, romance in an Agatha Christie. And then because I hadn't finished reading all of her books at that point, I moved on, always looking for a new book. And then on my way home from France, we had a layover at the London airport, and I went to the bookseller immediately and found 2 Agatha Christie's, this one and A Caribbean Mystery. And I started to read this one, and I was like, oh, this is that book. And it was like finding an old friend that I hadn't seen in forever, and it just became my favorite. Anthony Cade, master of intrigue and adventure, is caught up in a mysterious web of assassination, blackmail, and double-cross. Stolen love letters, a precious manuscript, a terrorist organization, and a fabulous jewel make up the clues to a sinister international conspiracy in which things are not quite as they seem. So, Anthony Cade, the protagonist of this book, is my hero. Who's your best friend? Favorite animal companion read in a book? For this, I'm picking Hannibal, and he is a little dog in Postern of Fate, which is the 5th Tommy and Tuppence book. And in this book, Hannibal plays a big part in catching the culprit, and has some dialogue in the book, which is really fun, where you kind of hear Hannibal's thoughts. So that's very endearing. This is a Tommy and Tuppence book, as I said, the 5th one. And this is Tommy and Tuppence Beresford have just become the proud owners of an old house in an English village. Along with the property, they have inherited some worthless bric-a-brac, including a collection of antique books. So in this book, Tommy and Tuppence are in their 70s and have kind of finished doing all of their intrigue and detective stuff that they did in their earlier lives, and have settled down. But of course, a mystery comes along and they cannot resist, especially Tuppence. This was the last book that Agatha Christie wrote, I believe, and a lot of people find it confusing, and it is, but to me, that's like a puzzle. So every time I read it, and I have read this multiple times because I read all of the Tommy and Tuppence books, starting with number 1 all the way through number 5, and then start over in a few months. So I always try to figure out what Agatha was thinking when she was writing this mystery. So that gives me extra enjoyment when I read this book. And even though it is repetitive, and that's one of the complaints that I hear or read about this book, there's elements of it that don't get solved. For me, that's a puzzle, and every time I read it, I try to piece it together to try to figure out, okay, how does this fit in? What was she thinking? If she was more on her game at this point in her life, I think she was like in her 70s or 80s. It's like, what would she have made of it? So that's always intriguing to me, and I enjoy the story anyway. And like I said, all of the Tommy and Tuppence books, I just reread them all the time. But that's what I picked for the favorite animal is Hannibal, the little dog, and I think he is a Manchester Terrier. There's my unicorn, a book with a magical creature or cute animal on the cover. I chose Dumb Witness for this. On the cover is Bob the dog. Hercule Poirot calls him Monsieur Bob. And this is everyone blamed Emily Arundel's accident on a rubber ball left on the stairs at her home in Market Basing by her frisky terrier Bob. But the more she thought about her fall, the more convinced she became that one of her relatives was trying to kill her. And of course, Poirot gets involved, and with Hastings befriends this little dog Bob, and who is the titular dumb witness because he cannot speak. It's a fun book. It's another one that I pick up as a comfort read. So I've read it multiple times. It has lots of those moments that Agatha Christie can create where you're like, oh my goodness. So yeah, another favorite of mine. What is Love? A book with an intriguing romance, friendship, or family dynamic. So for this, I chose Death on the Nile. The tranquility of a luxury cruise along the Nile was shattered by the discovery that Lynette Ridgway had been shot through the head. She was young, stylish, and beautiful, a girl who had everything until she lost her life. Hercule Poirot recalled an earlier outburst by a fellow passenger. I'd like to put my dear little pistol against her head and just press the trigger. Yet under the searing heat of the Egyptian sun, nothing is ever quite what it seems. So this has a love triangle. It ends fairly soon into the book. The love triangle between Lynette Ridgway, her husband Simon Doyle, and Simon's former fiance and Lynette's best friend, Jacqueline de Belfort. It is an intriguing romance of what happened with Lynette and Simon, um, how that came to be, because when the book opens, it's Jacqueline and Simon that are either engaged or boyfriend and girlfriend. So this is a great book. It's one of Agatha Christie's crown jewels. It's a lot of fun. It has great characters. The movie adaptation with David Suchet, I love. The one with Peter Ustinov is amazing. Great adaptations, great book. Child, I'm still reading the longest book series you have completed. So for this, I chose Poirot, the greatest detective in the world. According to Mark Aldridge, the greatest detective in the world is Poirot. So Poirot features in 33 novels and 51 short stories, and I've read every single one. Poirot is introduced in The Mysterious Affair at Styles, and this is a book where he has first come to England. It's set in Essex in the English countryside. The victim is Mrs. Emily Inglethorpe. She's the wealthy mistress of Styles Court. After an evening of entertaining family and guests, she is found poisoned in her locked bedroom. The long list of suspects includes her gold-digging new husband, her stepsons, her best female friend, and a visiting doctor. As luck would have it, a brilliant, if rather eccentric detective is among the company at Styles, Hercule Poirot. So that was the book that introduced him. The final book featuring Poirot is Curtain. This is kind of a boring book, so I'll put a picture here of the other Curtain book. But this features the death of Hercule Poirot, the end of his life. When this book came out, the New York Times featured an obituary on their front page for Hercule Poirot. That's something that they had never done before. It was such an amazing thing that Hercule Poirot was deceased. Please pardon my cat. Because he was and is the greatest detective in the world. Color Mix-Up, a book that is genre bending. I chose The Pale Horse for this. And The Pale Horse is a thriller, it's a mystery, it's a romance, it's supernatural, maybe horror. So lots of stuff going on in that book. An elderly priest is murdered, quite possibly doomed by a woman's deathbed confession and by the secrets kept safely locked behind the closed doors of a mysterious local pub. And this was one of the options that I had for the grim dark books. But I actually think, in spite of everything that's going on in there, it's not as grim and dark as Endless Night. So, but if you like, again, on the darker side, you might like The Pale Horse. The twist in this is surprising, and what's even more surprising, guys, the twist is based on something that happened in real life. Agatha Christie liked to pull from real life murder cases and real life other things that were going on and change things around a little bit and put them in her books. And this is one of the ones where she used, where actually this one was backwards. She wrote the book and then people were using elements from the story to commit crimes in real life. So I don't want to spoil it for you. So read the book, and if you want to know, let me know in the comments below and we can talk about it and I can let you know what that background is. But yeah, so this one's reversed. She does have a lot of books that have stories that she kind of took from real life and turned around, or maybe was inspired by. This one was the other way around. Her book, unfortunately, inspired some murders. Bet you didn't see that coming. A book with a surprising plot twist or a red herring. I picked And Then There Were None for this. So this, I debated between this one and The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, but because a red herring plays a part in this one, I decided to go with this one for this. In the present case, 10 people are invited to a lonely mansion off the coast of Devon by a host who fails to appear. They are completely cut off from civilization, cut off from everything but each other and the inescapable shadows of their own past lives. So this, I think, as far as quality, is Agatha Christie's best book. It has a surprise ending. The characters are well drawn, in my opinion. It's a fun read. The mystery is compelling, and it does take you by surprise. And the ending takes you by surprise because you think it's heading one way, and it doesn't go that way that you think. A lot of people classify this as her best book. It's very well known. If you haven't read any Agatha Christie and you want to jump right into one of her crown jewels, this is a great one. Do You Know My Name? A book with a misunderstood character. I chose Evil Under the Sun for this one. And the misunderstood character in here is Arlena Stewart. A young actress, Arlena Stewart Marshall, is brutally strangled on the cliffs of a seaside resort. Each of the guests at the Jolly Roger Hotel has a compelling motive, including Arlena's brand new husband, who seems to be the only man on the island not utterly distracted by her beauty. It is obvious to all the visitors that Patrick Redfern was violently smitten, much to the distress of his own wife. And the women hotel guest saw the frivolous and flirtatious starlet in a rather different light. Only Hercule Poirot, who has come to the Jolly Roger for some much-needed relaxation, can sift through the murderous secrets and macabre clues to unravel the mystery at this secluded playground by the sea. I love this book. It's another one that I read quite frequently. Arlena Stewart, the murder victim in this case, her character actually plays a big part in the solving of the mystery and the reason for her death. It's something that Hercule Poirot always says, that the character of the victim will tell you a lot as to who the culprit is. So misunderstood character, Arlena Stewart. Also, I really highly recommend this, one of my favorites. That's Wild, a book with an unbelievable ending. So I chose The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. So this was actually the very first Agatha Christie book that I read. I was about 9. Did a lot of it go over my head? Probably yes. But I distinctly remember picking this book up off of my uncle's bookshelf. It was a book that my mom had given to him. My uncle used to babysit me a lot when I was little, and he would let me read his books. And so I picked that one up, and I was intrigued, but still very much into Nancy Drew at the time. So while that was my first Agatha Christie at age 9, I really didn't start reading her until I was more like 12. But this one, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, village rumor hints that Mrs. Ferrars poisoned her husband, but no one is sure. Then there's another victim in a chain of death. Unfortunately for the killer, Master Sleuth Hercule Poirot takes over the investigation. So this one has a very surprising twist. I considered this one for the book with a twist, but surprise ending. So there you go, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Purple Everywhere, a book with a purple cover. So I've got The Tuesday Club Murders, and this was the book that introduced Miss Marple. It's a collection of short stories. A casual evening dinner party becomes a night of intrigue when one of the guests suggests that they each present a mystery, preferably one in which she or he has a personal knowledge, and let the group try to uncover its solution. This lively proposal yields a plethora of haunting, perplexing tales. Again, this is the book that introduced Miss Marple before her novels started. It's just fun. Trying to solve each of the little mysteries of the short stories, also a lot of fun. And the solutions, just like her novels, Agatha Christie just knows how to spin a tale and keep you guessing. So, The Tuesday Club Murders, this also was called 13 at Dinner, I think, when it was published, so you might also find it under that. Show Your True Colors, The Lord Made You Beautiful, Stack of Books and Unicorn Colors, purple, green, blue, yellow, and pink. Okay, so here are my books, and we're gonna start with the purple that I've already covered, and that was the Tuesday Club Murders. Next up is The Moving Finger, and this is another Miss Marple mystery. A series of poison pen letters has shattered the peaceful way of life in the quiet village of Limstock. No one is safe from the scathing accusations and alarming threats contained in these vicious notes, and everyone is wondering who the sinister mind is behind them. Neighbor suspects neighbor, and it seems that no one is free of motive. So this is a fun mystery involving some poison pen letters with the accusations cut out from letters from a magazine or from a book, and glued onto a page and then sent through to many people in the village. Miss Marple is the detective per se in this one, but there is another character that really is the one trying to work on the mystery, and he and his sister are new to the village, and so they're kind of outsiders with a different perspective from the people that live there. This is a fun one. It's another one that I reread quite often. Okay, blue is The Murder on the Orient Express. This is another one of Agatha Christie's most well-known books and considered one of her crown jewels. And while en route from Syria to Paris in the middle of a freezing winter's night, the Orient Express is stopped dead in its tracks by a snowdrift. Passengers awake to find the train still stranded and to discover that a wealthy American has been brutally stabbed to death in his private compartment. Incredibly, that compartment is locked from the inside. With no escape into the wintry landscape, the killer must still be on board. So that's The Murder on the Orient Express. Even though this is one of Agatha Christie's most well-known books, I find that I don't read it as often as some of the other ones. It's great, but once you know the mystery, it's not as shocking. But there's still lots of stuff to find on rereads. You get more into the characters of the people on board. So still a great one, just not one that I read as often. Next is A Murder is Announced. So this is one of my favorites. I do read this one quite a bit. This is a Miss Marple book. A murder is announced, read the ad in the classified section of the Morning Gazette, and will take place on Friday, October 19th at Little Paddocks at 6:30 p.m. Friends, please accept this, the only intimation. It was an invitation to an evening of murder mystery, fun and games that hardly anyone in the village of Chipping Cleghorn can resist. But the party suddenly takes an unexpected and lethal turn when real gunshots ring out of the darkness. Now one man is dead, and Miss Jane Marple must play a real and serious game of whodunit before the killer claims more victims. Another Miss Marple story. It's a lot of fun. Good twist. All of Agatha Christie's books have twists in them. This is a really great twist too. And one of my favorites, like I said, I do reread this one quite a bit. It's just so much fun. And finally, Pink, The Body in the Library. So again, another Miss Marple. And this one, Colonel and Mrs. Bantry are shocked when they wake one morning to find the dead body of a young platinum blonde on the floor of their library. Nobody in the village of St. Mary Mead seems to know who she is, but everyone has a theory about the crime. The ensuing investigation follows a twisted trail from this quiet village to an upscale hotel in the nearby town of Danemouth, where the victim worked as a ballroom dancer and bridge hostess. As the local inspectors sift through emerging clues to identify a suspect, Miss Jane Marple, St. Mary Mead's resident sleuth, always seems to be one step ahead of them. This is another great Agatha Miss Marple book, and I do read this quite a bit. Not as much as like A Murder is Announced or The Secret of Chimneys, but still up there in my rotation. Just all the Miss Marple ones are a lot of fun. I do try to read those in series order too, but I do pick up my favorite ones of hers just out of order. So that's it, guys. The Unicorn Book Tag, Agatha Christie edition. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoy Agatha Christie, if you have read any of these books, if you have read other Agatha Christie books that you would choose for the prompts in different than I did, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to get some comments going and have discussions about that. Agatha Christie is my favorite writer. I always want to talk about her. So thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.